Boomers. Today, we continue our conversation about having communication with those who have gone beyond the veil or who have so called died. My favorite book on the subject, and there are many really, is this book by Julia Asante called The Last Frontier: Exploring the Afterlife and Transforming Our Fear of Death. Now, I had recently had an interview or a conversation with an old time family friend, John Mears, who had his, well, lost his beautiful child, Angela. Um, and she started to whisper to him amazingly beautiful things that have to, which she terms pure love. She lives in an environment of pure love. And from this conversation that John and I had, and also from the book itself, we realized that pure love is something we can learn about right now, and we do not have to die or in the process of dying or as we experience the deathbed. We do not need to wait till we die in order to experience pure love. We can start now. There are spiritual practices. John was a meditator for many, many years, probably over 50 years, which made his psyche more receptive to his daughter who had passed beyond. So there are so many people who are unfamiliar with after death communication and do not recognize it when it occurs, and so end up ignoring it. And others are so startled by it that they stop it before it has a chance to unfold. The more you know about the various forms of contact, about what you might see, hear, and feel, the more prepared you will be when it happens. And it happens to all of us. We just may not want to know about that. So, familiarity is the key. With a little familiarity, you know when an encounter is happening. Identifying the often subtle signs that the departed are nearby will become second nature. So, familiarity also settles down confusion that you might feel. You can start to relax into an encounter while be more focused, more receptive to the messages. And then it will help you develop sustained two-way communication. Even better, it will pave the way of initiating contact whenever you need to or want to. Best of all, familiarity will make it much easier for the departed to get through to you. Let's use a telephone analogy. When a telephone was still somewhat a new thing years and years ago, people would pick it up and start screaming into it, thinking they did understand that there would be a disembodied voice on the other side, and a ring of the phone would set off an alarm inside, an inner alarm, and that's how it went. But now we are all often carrying the phone with us and too much into communication, maybe, but we are familiar with what it's like to talk on the phone. And we remain collected and in command when the phone rings, and we are prepared to hear a disembodied voice on the other line, on the other end of the telephone line. And the point is familiarity. After death communication can be arranged into two traditional: spontaneous and intentional. Any categorization, however, is merely for convenience and displays the current limit of our thinking. Now, just these two seemingly safe generalizations have a habit of crisscrossing each other in actual practice. So, until now, spontaneous communication seems to have made up the majority of encounters we have with our dearly departed loved ones, and it also tends to be short, lasting less than a minute, sticking to the crucial message, such as "I love you," "I'm okay," "I hope you're happy," and "we'll be together again." Intentional after death communication usually lasts longer and is more complex. There are several distinguishable subcategories beyond private one-to-one intentional communication. Just as these two seemingly safe generalizations have a habit of crisscrossing each other in actual practice, and until now, spontaneous communication, for the most of us, has been the norm. So here is how mediumship can be used. And this will no doubt proliferate in the coming decade as interest escalates and technologies evolve. And as you know, when we meet each other from the other side, who we meet is normally a family member, a sister, a brother, a parent, a grandparent, or a child. And occasionally they will show up together as a mix of several generations. And here are some examples as to how mediumship can be used. You encounter somebody who seems familiar but whom you can't place. In this instance, the person is liable to be from what could be called your spiritual family, most likely from one or more incarnations in which you two knew each other, karmically related, no doubt. Rarely a person seems to be unrelated to you or totally foreign might appear to act as an introduction. You might even meet a historical figure or a famous person, and then again you might see a ghost, but ghosts are not known and are not thought to be a person who has died. They are lingering apparitions, I guess. So it's similar to that of any long-distance relationship. Typically, communication is high the first year. When someone you're close to moves far away, you might communicate with them, and as time goes on, you do lose touch with them, as in the case of John Mears. And then when you do get back into touch with them, it feels like no time has gone by at all. And then there's such a thing as coincidence. Rarely. When the phone rings, you pick it up, and it's an old friend whom you have not spoken to for such a long time, and then you say, I just can't believe you just called. I was thinking about you. And I don't think that is a coincidence. I think that is ESP. It's the same with the dead. This is where spontaneous communication and intentional communication crisscross. Contact may be delayed for years or even months for a variety of different reasons. If, for instance, there's no unfinished business, the deceased may not feel any urgency to communicate right away. Sometimes direct communication is delayed. Because the departed do not feel separated from you, those they love on our side, alternatively a survivor may be too raw for mourning to take in direct contact and may be able to do so in time. The deceased may also need time and distance to change old unwanted habits before communicating. Delayed contact often occurs between deceased parents and adult children when their relationship was troubled, because the dead parent needs time to come to terms with the problems before attempting communication. When communication does start, it can last for months, if not longer, until the dilemma has been sorted out. You can have delayed communication with your parents whom you may have had troubled relationships with, and contact with people who are less problematic in your life can occur within a few days of their death. Untold numbers of encounters often occur in dreams while we are asleep. The dead use dreams to reach us more. Many other means, because dreams are the natural crossroads of the inner and outer reality. In dreams, the dead have more latitude and have less resistance. Whether remembered or forgotten, dream encounters will affect you. You may feel charged with inspiration upon having the dream the next day, You might find yourself humming a tune with lyrics that convey an important message. Unlike contact made when we are awake, most sleep states encounters are not as tightly structured. They are not necessarily realistic either. They're filled with symbols. And of course, our waking life is filled with symbols too, but we're just too rooted in the practical, linear, physical world to even take that in. That's for sure. So there's one example of a man whose father whirled a ball of light and swept him up into the sky. Although this man did not see his father in human form or hear the words, the dream marked the greatest turning point of his life. The dead also break into dreams. The Guterheim authors of Hello from Heaven describe the intrusion as akin to watching a TV show when a voice suddenly says, "We have interrupted the program for the following announcement." When people are in the midst of just about any activity, eating in a restaurant, doing taxes, walking a dog, it is quite likely to happen during major family events such as births, graduations, weddings, deaths, and funerals. All of these are markers of significant transitions that tend to expand awareness. And the dead will come in times of critical distress, as well as delirious joy, while you're energized, cruising in neutral, or just plain bored. And they are at the end of your day, bringing you home to your world. Yes, if you are about to die, you might see a lot of these wonderful people that you have loved. If you haven't already been bowled over by one of your discarnate loved ones, you may have had contact without really realizing it. The signs can be subtle. So how do you know? The more informed you are about what to be on the lookout for, the more you will notice. This means by which the dead make their presence known as too diverse to fully cover, and how they appear to us may come as a surprise to them as well. They don't necessarily choose to show up as a ball of light, as a smell, or a vaporous form. Many people feel brushed by a cool air, as though an open window had just been opened to let in a breeze. This phenomena may develop into full and unmistakable body sensations or sensations of tingling. Also extremely common is just knowing all of a sudden that you are not alone. This kind of awareness is closely related to the documented human ability to sense the presence of living people outside the visual range. Now, this is something that has happened to me, where I hear somebody in the house, which is not possible because I live alone. You might see something out of the corner of your eye. Yes, check. A cloudiness or stirring in a vacant area of space around you. Yes, check. Or a tiny light might appear. Perhaps a spark of color. A block of space might start to look like a cubist had painted it. Or a digital television image breaking up when the signal is failing. Such visual disruptions can appear superimposed in just about anything. The sky, for instance, or a piece of cloth, or showing up quite readily on reflective surfaces. John and his wife Mamie had an experience of a little tree showing up in their sink, and they clean everything up before going to bed at night. Very, very, very clean, and they saw this little visual of a tree in the sink. When they blew it up, they saw that visual, and that Angela loved trees, and she was, some of us are worshipers of trees. Isn't that awesome? So we might feel a caress of some sort, like a hug or a kiss, and John has described his daughter hugging him closely, as she was wont to do in living body. Tactile approaches only between people who were very close, and since the manner of touch was characteristic of the deceased while alive, it will be familiar and comforting rather than frightening. Um, and you might get whiffs of the perfume of your loved one, what they used to wear. If it's a woman, it's her perfume. A man, it's his aftershave smell. And you might smell the dish of something your grandmother used to cook, or on special occasions. You might smell your dad's cherry pipe tobacco. And this could be years after he died, you smell that. My father shows up as a crow, and he would often recite the Edgar Allan Poe, um, um, the crow. It was he recited the Edgar Allan Poe poem, and I have often seen him show up as a crow. In nearly all instances with olfactory phenomena, there was seldom any other kind of communication. No visions, no smells, no words, just smells. That's because very few people know how to work with olfactory signs to get to real communication. So, a lot of people can't get through or by the olfactory overload to start communicating. Sounds are also part of the repertoire of subtle signs. The familiar signs of a certain person's footsteps, a way of coughing, blowing their nose, or laughing, are sometimes clear enough to make up a snap to attention. Occasionally, a person might use a word like the auditory equivalent of disturbed space, mentioned in the form of momentary humming, whirling, or clicking within the white noise of our busy lives. And of course, the busier we are, the less we may be able to make this kind of contact. A few phrases might drift by, a song or played by someone on the other side. I might hear, instruments. Your name might be called, and you might hear a very distinct someone calling your name. And such auditory intrusions into our reality generally dissipate over time. And the dead frequently use inanimate objects to get our attention and are particularly successful with electrical and electronic devices, and explain power surges, brand new light bulbs burn out, lights in radios and televisions set flickers, grow dim or blank or bright, on and off. When my mother died, we had her ashes on the bookcase in our family home. We were in the living room, and my sister-in-law Jala said, "Oh, there's Kitty's ashes. Let's take a look at them." As she reached out to grab them, the electrical system in the house went out, and as my father went down in the basement fiddling around with what might be, what might be going on, I actually went outside to see if anybody else's electricity had gone out, and it had not. So she apparently my mother was communicating to us, for sure. So some people come home after being with their loved one in the hospital after they died and see that the clocks in the house all stopped at the exact same moment of their person's death. So it's just it goes on and on and on. And the point is that we have to be aware. It's very important to be aware of things and not think it's your imagination. But, as I have often said, the imagination is a wonderful, wonderful tool. And Einstein was notorious for saying that everything is imagination, and we might as well embrace that fact. Also, the appearance of a rainbow has been interpreted as a sign of an indirect encounter. A friend of mine who loved somebody very much Um, that love was not a romantic love, but it was a very deep and loving love. And she sees cardinals. Whenever she sees cardinals, she believes that he has come to visit her. Wildlife, small birds seem to help the dead get our attention. People help too, usually without knowing why. They show up on impulse with just the right thing your loved one would have given you, a bouquet of particular flowers, sometimes in a departed flavored cup, and maybe a CD of music with special significance, or whose lyrics turn out to be a message. So, this means to me that there are so many layers of experiences that we often just deny and choose the physical realm instead of the spiritual realm. We can choose the spiritual realm over the physical realm in all moments of our lives. There's going to be a video that shows up here. Please comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think.